Welcome to this session of Rotary Foundation Basics. This will be on the programs of the Rotary Foundation. I hope you've already listened to our brief introduction to this series, and please remain till the end of this webinar to hear more about resources available to you for further education on the Rotary Foundation. I'm Past District Governor Ray Shire, and I will be taking you through this session on the programs of the Rotary Foundation. We're going to start with the Rotary Foundation Grants Program. And in this session, we hope you will take away the following points or learning objectives. First, we'd like you to recognize the difference between a district grant and a global grant. And second, to learn the fundamental requirements for a global grant, including that each grant must fall within an area of focus of the Rotary Foundation. Each grant must have international partners working together. The project must be sustainable, its success must be measurable, and the budget for the project must be $30,000 or more to qualify for global grant funding. District grants are the successor to what was known previously as the District Simplified Grant. Under the old program, clubs could apply for $1,500 up to $1,500 for local projects in their community. Under the District Grant Program, much more money may be available to a Rotary Club. This grant eligibility is based on the club's cumulative giving and averaged over 30 months ending each December. Clubs may qualify for as much as $6,000 in the upcoming Rotary year 2015-2016 and a base amount of $1,500. District grants are administered by the district and come from a block grant applied to International Rotary Foundation in the spring. These grants are distributed by the district in the spring and are put in place in time for Rotary clubs to begin projects with that funding in the summer. In this example, we see the Rotary Club of Tustin, Santa Ana provided scholarships for high school seniors to help pay for college expenses, including books, supplies, and fees. These scholarships allow low-income students to attend college who would be otherwise unable to attend. In addition to scholarships and other local projects, district grants may also be used for international projects. To learn more about district grant funding, be sure to attend the grants management seminars held in the spring. In order to qualify for district grants, each Rotary Club must send 2 representatives to a grants management seminar each spring. The Global Grants Program is the successor to the Matching Grants Program of the Rotary Foundation. These grant applications are accepted by the Rotary Foundation on a rolling basis, and each grant has a budget of $30,000 or more. Every grant must be sustainable, and the project must fall within one of the 6 areas of focus. Let's look at some examples of a grant in each of those areas. In the area of disease prevention and treatment, we see in this example that clubs in Mali and the U.S. sponsored a project to provide treated bed nets, physician services, and medication to prevent and treat malaria in Mali. A team of 24 local women will be trained as community health workers to diagnose and treat early cases of malaria in the home before the disease progresses to the deadly stage. During its first 3 months, the Bite Malaria Back project made possible more than 3,000 patient visits at the Yurmajo Health Center. It also facilitated more than 12,700 visits by community health workers to residents' homes, resulting in the treatment of almost 900 children with malaria, over 80% of them within 48 hours of the onset of symptoms when medical intervention is crucial. So what makes this a global grant? Well, first of all, it falls within one of the areas of focus, disease prevention and treatment. Secondly, it is sustainable. Local women have been trained as community health workers to diagnose and treat cases of malaria. Therefore, the impact of the project will continue long after the Rotary Foundation funding is gone. This project's success was measurable. It was measured by the number of women trained, the number of health center patient visits, the number of community health worker home visits, and the number of children treated. When you are considering writing a global grant and are looking at the areas of sustainability and measurability, the first thing you should determine is whether the community will benefit by training in order to maintain the program into the future. The second thing to consider in terms of measurability are the numbers of people trained, the numbers of wells built, the numbers of children who have received treatment. Something that is actually quantifiable and that can't be counted is measurability. In this case, the budget for this project was $60,000. And remember, the minimum budget for a project to qualify for global grant funding is $30,000. Our second area of focus, water and sanitation, takes us to Sierra Leone, where clubs in that country and the United States sponsored a project to install 71 water wells, serving as many as 71,000 people in rural communities in Sierra Leone. So what made this global grant qualify for funding? Well, first of all, it is in an area of focus, water and sanitation. And it was made sustainable because 3 clubs in Sierra Leone and the non-governmental organization World Hope International committed to ensuring the long-term impact of the project. They did this by recruiting local Rotarians to help choose locations for the wells and monitor their effectiveness after installation, and to form community committees to maintain the wells. So in this example, we see that by working with local stakeholders in order to determine the best locations for these wells, that they were placed in areas where they would be maintained by local community committees. Measurability of this project seems a little obvious. The success is measured by the number of wells installed and/or the number of people served. The budget for this 71 water well project was $303,517. In the area of maternal and child health, the Rotary Foundation funded a vocational training team of pediatric heart surgery specialists from a children's hospital in the U.S. to travel to Uganda to perform corrective heart surgeries and teach their counterparts surgical techniques and post-operative care. And this is where I'll take a little detour to discuss the new concept of a vocational training team. In the past, we had what was known as a group study exchange, where 2 groups of young adults of mixed vocational backgrounds would exchange from one country to the other. For example, we would bring in a team from Finland and we would send a team to Finland. And they would study their various vocations in the country that they visited, as well as engaging in the cultural activities of Rotary in the other country and sharing their own culture with those Rotarians. This concept was replaced in 2013 by the vocational training team. A vocational training team differs from group study exchange in several ways. First of all, it does not need to be an exchange. A team can travel in one direction only, or there can truly be an exchange of ideas between 2 Rotary districts or 2 Rotary clubs in the world. The vocational training team, rather than being made up of diverse vocational backgrounds, will come from a single vocation. Now, when I say single vocation, I don't mean they're all pediatric nurses, but it may be a medical team, which is needed to comprise the team that will perform a service project in the country that they visit. Vocational teams will be centered around a service project in an area of focus, and they will bring a diverse background of skills within a general vocational area in order to either train or be trained in the vocational team that receives the grant. So let's return to the example of these pediatric heart surgery specialists who traveled from the U.S. to Uganda. In addition to actually performing corrective heart surgeries, they taught their counterparts surgical techniques and postoperative care. So we see that by training these specialists in Uganda, that there is a sustainable impact. Those surgeons may then continue to perform corrective heart surgeries in Uganda for years to come. It is also measurable because the number of medical personnel trained and the number of patients seen are both ways to measure the success of this project. And of course, there were 2 international clubs involved. In addition, the vocational training team was led by a Rotarian who had experience and expertise in the area of focus. This is also different from the group study exchange. Rotarians may participate, and further, there's no upper age limit, so that we can continue to take advantage of the experience of our more seasoned members. It's not limited by age, but it is limited by experience, and every member of the vocational training team must have at least 2 years of experience in that area. Moving on now to the area of basic education and literacy. This is an illustration of clubs in South Africa and the United States supporting another vocational training team. Last one being focused on medical. This one is on education. And they are focused on learning about the challenges of teaching young children in the rural villages of South Africa, but also in the urban communities of the United States. This was a true exchange. So we had South Africans coming to the United States, and we had Americans traveling to South Africa to learn the differences and the similarities in the challenges of teaching young children. Educators from both countries visited each other's schools and shared best practices in areas that included preschool curriculum, facilities, community support, and they also established a system for online teacher training. So what made this a global grant? Well, first of all, 2 international clubs working together, an area of focus, the basic education and literacy area, sustainability, where the local educators were trained in best practices, and training was also provided to parents. And of course, measurability, where success was measured by the number of educators trained. And finally, the budget for this grant, which included 2 teams, one traveling in each direction, was $75,000. Our next area of focus is economic and community development, where Rotarians work to build the economies and the communities of third world countries by strengthening local capacity for business and for educational development. In this example, we see that the districts in the US and the Netherlands sponsored a scholar to earn a master's degree in developmental studies at Erasmus University in Rotterdam. Now, what would that scholar possibly do, and how this project could be sustainable would be that the scholar will learn about the challenges communities face at local and regional levels, as well as the challenges to sustainable development from social, economic, and political perspectives. But more importantly, each of our global grant scholars will put their skills into practice after graduation. They make a lifelong commitment in their area of focus. And in the example of this scholar, he will continue to assist communities in need, helping them to identify business and community development opportunities. The budget for this scholarship was $49,000. And finally, in the area of peace and conflict resolution, we have these smiling faces. We return now to Uganda, where clubs in Uganda and the United States received a global grant to provide training in peace building for 200 teachers and 1,300 students at 10 high schools in Uganda. The sponsor clubs are working with the Great Lakes Center of Conflict Resolution in Gulu, Uganda, and peace clubs were established at schools using music, drama, and other means to provide ongoing education about conflict prevention and resolution in local communities. So what made this a qualified global grant? First of all, of course, the area of focus, peace and conflict resolution. Secondly, this project was sustainable because after the grant project is completed, the center will continue to integrate the training curriculum of peace clubs into its activities and will continue to work with 10 schools. The knowledge and skills acquired by the teachers and students will enable them to become lifelong agents of peace for their communities and the nation. And isn't that the bottom line, Rotarians, that we work for peace through service? We can measure our success in this particular case by the number of teachers and students trained, and the budget for this global grant was in excess of $33,000. That takes us to the end of this introduction to district and global grants. We hope that you have learned to distinguish between a district grant administered by the district and funding to local clubs for local communities or international grant funding, and that you now know the basics of global grants and how they must be within an area of focus, how they must be sustainable and measurable, and how they must fund a project of $30,000 or more. For additional resources and information about the Rotary Foundation, you can visit rotary.org or visit our district website, rotary5320.org, and under the For Members link, visit the resources page. You will find a Rotary Foundation resources page, which includes links to these webinars, including those found on our YouTube page, as well as pamphlets, presentations, and other information that you can use at your Rotary Club in order to further your information and your knowledge about the Rotary Foundation. Please join us for our next segment. This has been Ray Shire, past District Governor, on behalf of the Rotary Foundation and Rotary District 5320.